Good evening and welcome to Sports Overtime. We are here in our digital studio. You can watch Southeast Sports Plus Monday to Friday, 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We spent this past week previewing a lot of great games in and around college football and basketball with our friends from Nexstar Nation. Here's the best of.
You could argue, guys, and I was thinking about this yesterday, if you asked the MVP of the Texas team, and as absurd as it sounds, 3 of the Texas 7 wins, Ryan Niblett has changed the game more than anybody else. And those are 3 SEC games, and 2 of them are against, Mississippi State down 17 and number 6 at the time, Oklahoma. It sounds crazy,
right?
But as far as just sheer difference in the game, those 3 games, Niblett was really the difference in the game. So that kind of tells you where this team is this year.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a chance to hear from Coach Steve Sarkisian on his team underachieving.
I mean, I guess that's into who voted us number 1, okay? What I think is that this team has competed their tail off. They've been faced with a lot of different adversity and injuries, and a lot of stuff has come across this team's plate. And I'm very, very proud of them with their resiliency. At the end of the day, at the University of Texas, we're held to a very high standard. And the standard is to compete for championships year in and year out. And we're going to play the best teams in the country. We're going to schedule the best teams in the country. But by the end of the season, we'll play, of our 12 regular season opponents, 5 of those teams will be top 10 teams when we play them, so nearly half our schedule. And we have an opportunity at the end of the regular season to do something that nobody's done since 2019, and that's beat 3 top 10 ranked teams in the regular season. The last team to do that was LSU with Joe Burrow. So have we been faced with a pretty difficult schedule? Have we been faced with high expectations? Sure, but that's why we came here. So we'll be okay.
I find it really interesting, Roger, that Sark and all these coaches, they talk and preach one game at a time, and it's very, it's a very like hyper-focused sensation mentality. But whenever it is question upon them about certain things, they can rattle off the resume like this and like, hey, 2019, the last time we were able to do this and do that and do this and do that. Does he see? Is this just him politicking in case they go beat Arkansas and beat Texas A&M? That, hey, I'm going to get a 14-day head start on the college football committee to be able to try to get us into the playoff, or is he just being defensive against the fan base that might be grumbling a little bit?
Well, I think the first thing he's saying is we played Ohio State and we didn't have to, and that's probably a win if we don't play them. So then all of a sudden you say, okay, we were a 3-loss team with a game at number 2 in the country on the road. But it doesn't matter because they played them, right? But that's the weird thing about college football is the schedule matters. It doesn't work itself out all the time. And I think about you guys were talking about A&M. Nothing against A&M. They've had a magical year, and I've been sitting down here for 30 years watching them struggle just to play for a conference championship. Hasn't happened in the SEC. It happened once in the Big 12, and they lost to Kansas State. But think about the schedules. No Alabama, no Georgia, no Ole Miss, no Oklahoma.
Yep.
Texas, they didn't play Alabama. They didn't play Ole Miss. They didn't play LSU, but LSU isn't what we thought, or that would have been a marquee game.
Right.
They do play Georgia back-to-back. So, again, and in the old Big 12, there were divisions, right? So you had a South and a North. You played every team in your division and half the teams in the other division. So you had a pretty clear-cut way of deciding the championship game. Here it's just chaos with 16 teams. So it's almost like if A&M wins against Texas, then they should be the SEC champs.
Yeah.
Because you can't have it both ways. You can't look at who they didn't play and then say, well, they went undefeated. They should be the champs. So it's unintended consequence of these just like the Big Ten. Now that'll sort itself out because Indiana and Ohio State, who didn't play in the regular season, are going to play in Indianapolis. But the conference champion race now is so weird because of the massive sizes of the conferences.
Well, ever since the SEC went to 16 teams and no divisions, the divisions have kind of like left my mind for the most part. But every now and again, there's certain rematches or certain games that remind me of the old division days. Alabama LSU is obviously one of them. And then the other one is Tennessee, Florida. It reminds me, okay, this is a good SEC East battle. Another big game here against the Florida Gators, who we've seen they're a feisty football team at times when they want to be. What's the preparation this week as they go down to the Swamp to play the Gators?
Yeah, I mean, Coach Heupel, he even said on Monday morning, he's like, we're showing the team, some film. We're showing them, hey, this is what this series has been. This is what this, rivalry is all about. We used to control this rivalry back in the day. This was our rivalry that, every once in a while we'd let one slip, but this was our controlled rivalry back in the 90s, early 2000s. And while Tennessee certainly has kind of evened things out in recent years as far as, just picking up wins back and forth, they haven't been able to get those wins down in Gainesville. So I think this is a huge game just to show, like you mentioned earlier, when the landslide starts to go, can you recover, or are you going to continue to let that snow roll up, snowball, and just let the season end in disaster and then lack of hope for the year, for the following season. So this is a huge one, not just to, okay, let's improve our bowl game for the end of the year.
Right.
And, maybe not just, okay, we got to get this because it's a rivalry, but you want to have that encouragement. You want to know heading into the year prior, okay, we finally snapped that streak. We finally beat Florida in Gainesville. We got that one off our back. We don't have to worry about that being a headline going into 2 years from now, having to go into Gainesville. So this is a game that, regardless of the records, or regardless of Florida having, 3 wins on the season, regardless of do we know which team's going to show up, which, Heisman DJ Lagway, or the Lagway where we're not sure if he, he's going to throw 4 interceptions a game. Regardless of all that outside noise, this is a game that Tennessee's like, hey, we have to go down there and we have to win this one.
It's like the whole Alabama thing with Kalen DeBoer. It's
Yep.
The expectations are so high coming in. But speaking of a guy that did have expectations coming into this season, Otega Oweh, preseason SEC Player of the Year. It kind of just feels like to me he hasn't really found his footing yet this year. What have you made of his play so far?
Yeah, I mean, Patrick, you're right on the money. It's the same thing that everyone's thinking here. Almost like, what is Otega Oweh doing? How is he even contributing? You go and watch these games, and he hasn't even been the standout guy really at all throughout the few games they've had this season. Obviously, he had the 12 against Michigan State, but in terms of just being the projected SEC Player of the Year and being the go-to guy that is taking over, nobody has seen that. It's definitely been a shock to most people here. And, it was kind of crazy after the Michigan State game when he had his press conference. He just said that the one thing holding him back is his own personal effort, which can be a big red flag for somebody with so many projected accolades going into this year to come out and say, at the mecca of college basketball and on the national stage, it's effort that's holding you back. That's something that you personally can control. And so I think that was also kind of a little nerve-wracking for Big Blue Nation, and I'm sure the rest of the country.
Once they tuned in, Marcel Reed said, let me show you what I'm all about. And that's kind of what we saw in that second half. Was he looked like a Heisman candidate, and the Heisman candidate that he's been playing like all season. And I think since everybody was tuned into that game to see if Texas A&M would lose to South Carolina, they saw a lot of good Marcel Reed, whereas they might not have been tuned in for the first half, just looking at the matchup on paper. So I think he really proved a lot of people wrong that, they probably looked at that first half, the start of that game, like, this is the Marcel Reed of old. He's still a young quarterback. He's still maybe not in that upper echelon of players to talk about in college football. And realistically, he is. He should be talked about as one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And he showed it in that second half. I mean, you saw the numbers right there.
Parker, it seems like there's a piece of news that has gotten lost in the shuffle of the largest comeback in program history, and that's Texas A&M inking Mike Elko to a 6-year extension. What is that? What do you make out of that? Because, I mean, we opened this hour talking about Lane Kiffin and the saga there, and it's a little interesting that he hasn't signed an extension if he really does want to stay in Ole Miss. What does that say about Elko's commitment to Texas A&M?
I think it's not only Elko's commitment, but his family's commitment to College Station as well. And they've talked about how they love Aggie Land. They want to stay in College Station, and this deal proves that. Something that I thought was really cool about this contract extension, and how about that, to have the rumors come out and then you lead them to the largest comeback in program history? I mean, it just kind of was like money well spent. But the coolest part about this deal is Elko has stipulations in the contract, sort of some bonuses if he hits certain benchmarks, like make it to the SEC title game, win the SEC title game, win a college football playoff game, make it to the national championship game. He gets paid a little bit of a bonus, like $250,000, maybe $1 million, if he hits those benchmarks. Mm-hmm. But part of this deal, he wanted his assistant coaches to also get bonuses if they hit those benchmarks, because he said they do as much of a job of coaching this team as I do. And I think that says a lot about kind of the culture that he's building in Aggie land. Is, it's not just him. He might be one of the top 10 highest paid coaches in college football, right. But he wants to make sure that his squad and his team is reflected on that success. And I think he deserves it. He's proved that he's deserved it over these past 2 years, but also there's that risk of, should we pay him this early? Mm-hmm. Obviously, Aggie fans have been wronged before. I guess that's the easiest way to put it with Jimbo Fisher. So they definitely have some PTSD there, but I think they're getting a good one with Elko.
Stay with us here on Sports Overtime. And remember, you can watch our show, Southeast Sports Plus, from 2 to 4 o'clock on the free WKRG Plus app. You can find us on your Roku, Fire TV, or Apple TV device.
Pretty much every national champion, with the exception of like maybe 2019 LSU, has like some ugly wins over the year. Where you're like, I don't know how that happened. Mm-hmm. Texas had a couple of those the last couple of years, but they would never like get, overwhelmed. They were clearly overwhelmed in that game and looked overmatched. And then if you try to spin it forward, it's kind of like, how many games has Texas looked really good this year? They've had a good half in a couple of games. They were, they played Ohio State actually very well. Like, looking back, that was not a bad game.
Right.
Their best game was against Oklahoma, I would say, and they had, I think, 3 points at the half. They did nothing offensively, and they turned it on late. Then against Vanderbilt, they totally collapsed defensively in the second half. So I just don't think this team is as good as we all thought they were coming out of that Georgia game.
Absolutely. And now, as we spin it forward, this is a really interesting and dangerous Arkansas team that comes out ahead, that comes up next. It's a team that's just, starving for a win, and they call themselves the champions of almost, and they've almost won just about every game so far. How important is this matchup? Because it is very easy to look ahead at, hey, potentially if we go beat Texas A&M, there's an outside chance we're getting into the playoff, but also trying to take care of business against Arkansas. What do you make of this particular game as it relates to the bigger picture of Texas trying to fulfill their ultimate dream of going back to the college football playoff?
I don't think Texas should get in. I mean, if they beat A&M like 60-0 or something absurd,
right?
Maybe we'll have another discussion. But I remember talking to you guys last week and saying, I think there's little question at the end of the year Texas will be one of the 12 best teams in the country. Mm-hmm. With the getting to the playoff is a different discussion. But as I kind of look at this full picture for Texas, it's not encouraging to me how they played this season. And I don't see them beating Texas A&M. My score prediction for this week is like 37-34 or something, because the Arkansas defense is not great. But exactly. But the Arkansas offense compared to against this Texas defense could have a lot of success, especially because the Longhorns might be without Anthony Hill, their star linebacker, who for almost 3 years now, pretty much his entire time in Austin, the defense has run through Anthony Hill. Yeah. He's the leader of that group. They have other leaders back there like Michael Taft, who's back healthy. But if Anthony Hill is out and you're facing a dual threat guy like Taylor Green, that's a huge, huge loss for Texas. So Arkansas can come in. I think the team is focused on this matchup, and it's not as big a trap game as people think, even though it's sandwiched between Georgia and A&M. But I think that doesn't even matter, despite the fact that Texas is focused on it and everything. It's easily could be a one-possession game. That's what I expect it to be, and a high-scoring affair as they get set to face the Hogs this weekend.
Julian, maybe you should tell that to Lane Kiffin as well. Maybe you should try to he keeps on saying, come to the SIP. He just posted about it this morning. So, I mean, the trolling is just at an all-time level there with Lane. But speaking of this Kentucky team, it definitely is a little bit more interesting now seeing where the team has gone since the Auburn game. Obviously, that was the start of their 3-game win streak. Had that insane win over Florida where they just blew them out, looked like the better team. And then last week beat a good Tennessee Tech team. Now, the thing that sticks out to me is that bullet on the bottom, they need one more win for bowl eligibility. What do you are you concerned? I know you're a little bit concerned about the upset, but what happens if Vanderbilt goes down early? Do you think that the mindset is going to shift there on that Commodore sideline?
You know, they have gone down early, particularly against Auburn, and then they were able to play with some desperation because Diego was just going to be Diego. However, I will say that though Vanderbilt, I think, is going to come in pretty desperate because they're going to have to win out to keep their playoff hopes alive. Similarly, with that last bullet point on that full screen that you had, with Kentucky going to be desperate to get that one win to get bowl eligible. They still have, obviously, Louisville after this, but you know, I think it's one of those things where you didn't expect it, and then you rattle off 3 wins in a row, and all of a sudden, well, maybe we can believe we can get a postseason opportunity here. Yeah. And to put a cherry on top, upset Vanderbilt and an SEC rival and knock them out of postseason contention. All I'm saying is, if you're Vanderbilt, you need a fast start because that's what almost doomed them against Auburn and doomed them against Texas. They got out of playing Vanderbilt football, which is running the ball, time of possession, shortening the game. And if Kentucky, if you allow a team like that to hang around a little bit, you don't want to play with fire when it comes to the fourth quarter ultimately.
Stay with us here on Sports Overtime. And remember, you can watch our show, Southeast Sports Plus, from 2 to 4 o'clock on the free WKRG Plus app. You can find us on your Roku, Fire TV, or Apple TV device.
Y'all, we talked about, will Lane Kiffin come here? Will he not? Me personally, I don't think he's coming. I think Lane is the troll of all trolls, and he wants to be the pretty girl, and he wants to be wanted, especially after a few years ago he was not wanted by Florida or LSU, and they hired outside of him. And so I think he's got a vendetta. He's like, hey, you don't want me now, let's see how much you want me now. And so it's just, I think he's just trolling us. I think he is like, hey, show me everything you got, give me all this attention. Then he's gonna be like, just kidding, I'm good, I got my recruiting class and I got all this lined up. And I think he's gonna stay in Oxford. I think he's got it easy there, and I think he's, you know, destined for the college football playoffs. And why would you build all of that and then leave that, especially even though he said the ultimatum wasn't really an ultimatum? Why would you leave that and not do what you set out to do and not see it through? I just can't see that. For me personally, that would drive me insane. I would always have regret of being like, we did all of that and then I'm going to leave for another program. It would just eat at me. Lane Kiffin, he's a different animal, so maybe he's like, it doesn't matter, I'll do it somewhere else. Who knows? But I don't believe that he's coming to Baton Rouge. Like, I just feel like he wants to be in control of everything, and his family's out here visiting these other places, but we haven't seen him. We haven't seen him in the conversations. He's been very coy about, oh, well, this is where I want to be, but then he's not signing the contract. So I just think he's making a mockery of all of us, and he's going to be like, y'all need to wait on this coaching hire, and then kind of put both LSU and Florida on the hot seat trying to figure out who they can hire in a short turnaround. And so I just think it's going to be the biggest troll job ever, and Lane's going to be like, I still got y'all.
So do you think LSU would be in front of Florida right now, or do you think the Gators are a little bit in front of LSU if Lane were to leave?
That's a good question. I think with the ties with his ex-wife, and y'all talked about it, he idolized Steve Spurrier. There's a reason why he wears the visor. That's the reason why he does some of the things. And he's talked about it, like the ball coach. That's who he idolized and he wanted to be him. And so to me, I would assume that Florida would have the upper hand, because then he can go to Florida and do what Steve Spurrier did. So then he's in that same conversation of like, hey, I did this, I'm on that level. LSU, I think not that it's necessarily an easier road, but it's.
Well, Landry definitely wants him to go there.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. She needs to stay away from Whit Weeks. He's been hurt ever since they came out. Like, girl.
That's so true.
I know. Like, she gave him some voodoo spell or something. I don't know. She had
Lane's trolling. It's just Lane's trolling.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
That's our show tonight. Remember, you can watch Southeast Sports Plus Monday to Friday from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock on the free WKRG Plus app. Catch us on your Roku, Fire TV, or Apple TV device. Good night.